Special guest Clay Callum calling into the show today to talk about the Final Xcellent 25 rankings, plus a recap of the McDonald's All-American game. These are your top stories today in the locker room. I am Megan Peasha. Philly is title town. The girls from Newman-Goretti completed a perfect 30-0 season and earned the #1 spot on the Xcellent 25 National Girls Basketball Rankings presented by the Army National Guard. Now the man behind the rankings, Clay Callum, is on the phone with us today. Clay, I want to welcome you into the show, and let's have you talk a little bit about the final list and just how difficult it is to come up with this list.
This year's Xcellent 25 final rankings were particularly difficult because a case could have been made for any one of the top 5 teams to be #1. It certainly wasn't an easy process to finally settle on Newman-Goretti because they had one big weakness in it: they didn't play a strong schedule. The problem was that they really weren't able to play a strong schedule, so you can't blame them for that. It's not as if they had opportunities but didn't take advantage of them. And of the top 5 teams, they were the only unbeaten team. Many coaches who saw them play really felt that putting them on a big stage, they would have competed with everyone. #2 wound up being Blackman, and Blackman's sort of controversial. They had 2 losses, one to Potter's House Christian, which is in the top 25, another one to a team that's not in the top 25. But they have big wins. They beat St. Mary's of Stockton. They beat Elizabethtown. They played a very strong schedule. They beat the team that played for the Ohio Championship. So they played a very difficult schedule, and they beat St. Mary's of Stockton. St. Mary's of Stockton only has 1 loss, but it's to Blackman. So head-to-head, Blackman has to be better. They played on a neutral court at the Nike TOC. So a lot of people in California especially feel St. Mary's of Stockton should be #1 because they don't have those losses, and they have a lot of very good wins, including beating Mater Dei, one of the teams that beat Blackman. So you can sort of go back and forth on that. Cypress Woods out of Texas lost once to North Shore, but then turned around and beat North Shore later in the season. Columbus North, 1 loss, same thing. They lost to Lawrence North, beat them later in the season. So it's really a complicated equation. And it really comes back to this. Anyone in the top 25 is really a good team. Anyone in the top 5 is a great team. And this year it was sort of a flip of the coin, and who did you like better? That would have been your #1 pick.
As is the case with high school basketball, not all of these teams have the chance to match up head-to-head. But out of 20,000 girls basketball teams across the country, getting it down to 25 is quite an accomplishment. So Clay, now that these final rankings are done, what's up next for you?
So that was the final rankings, and of course next up is the Player of the Year and the All-American teams. And these individual awards are obviously very, very important, and we've done a lot of work in selecting them, and I do think that our choice for Player of the Year is going to be a bit of a surprise. Well-deserved, but still a bit of a surprise. And when we come to the All-American teams, it's always difficult because there's 2 aspects. There's potential, that is, who's going to be the best college player, who's going to be the best professional player, and then there's production. I try to really weight both. In other words, if you're the best player on a top 10 team, you're probably a high school All-American because you were part of something big at the high school level. If you're a really good player with a lot of numbers and your team went 500, I don't know if you're a high school All-American, even if you go on to play in the WNBA. I think a classic example is Nancy Mulkey, who's 6'9" and plays for Cypress Woods, one of the top teams in the nation, #4. She wasn't necessarily the best player on her team. She'll probably be the best player 5 years from now. So does she deserve to be a high school All-American this year based on what she's probably going to do? Or does the best player on that team this year, who may not have that ceiling, turn out should she be the All-American?
And I know our fans are looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Clay. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. We're going to switch now over to a recap of the McDonald's All-American game. In the highest scoring game in its 14-year history, Notre Dame-bound Marina Mabry had 12 points and 6 rebounds to earn the Team East MVP honors, while Louisville signee Asia Durr and Kentucky-bound Taylor Murray had 14 points apiece to lead the East to an 89-87 McDonald's All-American game win at the United Center in Chicago. Also from Team East, Tasia Cole had 13 points, Brianna Frazier posted 10 points, and Allie Patberg added 5 assists. The West got 12 points and 6 rebounds out of Katie Lou Samuelson, 21 points from Tennessee-bound Taya Cooper, while teammate and North Carolina-bound Stephanie Watts scored 16 of her 19 in the second half. Cooper earned MVP honors for the West. That's all for today. Another big congratulations going out to Newman Goretti, our nation's #1 team. That's all from the Locker Room Report. I am Megan Peasha for MaxPreps.com.